This meeting of City Council dated January 16th, 2023 is called to order at 6:30 p.m. We will begin with a moment of prayer or reflection. Thank you. I would now like to read the city's land acknowledgement. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. We'll now move on to councillor announcements. I know Councillor Robbins has an announcement.
I do. Thank you very much, Mayor Clark. I just wanted to say a few words about Managing Director Mastel on the occasion of his last council meeting, which is today. I've had the pleasure of working with Brian as the Chair of Public Services, and with him, of course, as Managing Director of Public Services, and I found his knowledge, his problem solving, and I think most importantly, his steady guidance of his team really demonstrated all the qualities of great leadership. I know he'll be missed, and his next great adventure will sure be a great one for him and his family. He tells me he will remain in Medicine Hat, so he will continue to see the benefits of all the projects he's worked on over the years with the city. I grilled Brian today. He started in January 2012 as the General Manager of Finance. 2014 became the Commissioner of Corporate Services. In 2019, the Commissioner of Public Services, and then when the titles changed, Managing Director of Public Services. He did tell me this work at the city involved a lot of learning, and it's been satisfying for him to see how the efforts made have touched the community. I wanted to thank Brian personally for his hard work, his patience through all the many questions we've asked at committee and otherwise, and thank him very much for his passion for Medicine Hat. His leadership will be missed, especially at Public Services Committee.
Well said. Thank you very much for your service, Managing Director Mastel, and we wish you the very best. Did you have a few words that you would like to share?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, if you don't mind. It's been a tremendous, just over a decade of my life. Came into municipal government as my first foray into municipal government, and this is a tremendous one to join as an organization. The breadth of the work that happens at this municipality is like no other. I've been fortunate to be part of a diverse set of projects and initiatives and work with multidisciplinary groups across this organization that have passions for such incredible things, from geology and rocks that I still don't know much about to we got economists and statisticians and people that can deal with trees and logistics and emergency services, and I've had the opportunity in my roles to work with almost all of them. It's been pretty incredible. The services that are delivered here by the people that roll out of bed every morning and the passion that they have for this community is truly inspiring. And I had an opportunity to experience that as well, which was new to me and neat as a leader to see the inspiration that people have for the work that they do every day. It's been a highly challenging and rewarding segment of my career, and I look forward to the next stages in my life, but very much am happy to be able to stay in the community and watch this organization and community grow and continue to transform. The last 10 years have been quite a decade when I reflect on it, and I expect the next 10 years to be very similar in terms of evolution of this community into the future, and it's pretty exciting. So thank you for the opportunity. It's been my pleasure to serve the city.
Thank you, Managing Director Mastel. Are there any other councillor announcements? Seeing none, we will move on to the adoption of the agenda. I believe, oh, no, sorry, I jumped ahead. That's them in the minutes. So any additions to the agenda?
I have an amendment.
I think to the minute, you,
Oh, yes, to the minutes.
Yes,
Sorry,
yeah.
jet lag.
jet lag, yeah. Okay, so seeing none, we will adopt the agenda. And then moving on to the adoption of the minutes from regular meeting of City Council dated December 19th, 2022. Councillor Sharps, I believe you have spotted an omission.
I have, thank you. So we need an amendment to include the omission of the appointments of Kathy Acton and Alfred Stanky to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board.
Okay, any other amendments? Councillor Robbins?
Just a small one, if I find it now. Robin Miller, who's with the Medicine Hat Community Housing, oh, here it is, page 7 of 48. Her name is just misspelled, so, sorry. Madam Clerk, I didn't get to tell you in advance of that, but I thought while we're amending, if we wouldn't mind, her last name actually has 2 I's in it.
Okay, seeing no further errors or omissions, we will adopt the minutes as amended. No public hearings today, so we'll move right to item 9, committee and commission business arising. First item is 9.1, Economic Land and Strategic Planning and Development Committee, meeting minutes from January 10th, 2023.
I move that council adopt the minutes of the Economic Land and Strategic Planning and Development Committee meeting held on January 10th, 2023, as presented for the corporate record.
I'll second.
All right, we will vote on adoption. That passes unanimously. Councillor Van Dyke, did you have any committee highlights that you'd like to share?
Not today, thank you.
Question from Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. When I was reading this, I just had some questions regarding strong towns. So I think this is something I think everybody knows that we signed on to. But as I read this, I realize that for somebody sitting at home reading this, they might not know exactly what this initiative is and what we as a council are doing with strong towns. I was wondering if we could kind of do a brief synopsis and maybe help everyone understand what this is.
Interim City Manager Pancoast.
Thank you, through Mayor Clark to Councillor Sharps. Strong Towns really is a growing philosophy within, particularly driven out of the United States. We are one of a handful of communities invited to participate in a community action lab. And really the intent of that work is to help educate and promote the broader Strong Town philosophy. And it's really driven on the basis of what is a prudent and appropriate growth path with respect to overall cost benefit of how you develop, but also the broader strategies and philosophies as to how that contributes to not just financial prosperity, but also quality of life through that process. So we're looking to have the direct voices from Strong Towns help provide that guidance and coaching, but it will be City of Medicine Hat staff as well as broader community leadership helping to guide how we apply those principles through time. So we are looking to have a first kickoff with the community in February, and information about that will be coming shortly, including reservation in calendars to make sure that we have an opportunity to learn more directly through that program.
Just a quick follow-up. So when we do that further information, is that where we'll better understand the deliverables that we're trying to achieve? Because I think I'm still a little, I mean, I've read it all and I get it and it makes sense, but a part of me goes, okay, what's the actual deliverable here? What's the community going to see at the end of the day of us engaging in this? So is that when we hope to see that? Yeah. Okay.
And through the chair, we did have an opportunity when we first announced our potential participation in Strong Towns. The actual package had included the deliverables from the Community Action Lab. It is a pilot program, but that being said, the intent really is a broader education across the community, and then how we apply that going forward would be up to the city itself.
Councillor Robbins?
Thank you, and through the chair, I just wanted to say that I appreciate the addition of the Department 101s. This is the one area of the city that I think I still need more education about, so I look forward to seeing those. I hope they're going to come to us through council as well in a written format in addition to what you discuss at committee, but I really appreciated seeing that there. I think it'll be very helpful.
Any further questions or comments with respect to the minutes of the Economic Land and Strategic Planning and Development Committee? Okay, seeing none, we are going to have to workshop a new name for that committee. Item 9.2, Energy and Infrastructure Committee, meeting minutes dated December 15th, 2022.
Yes, thank you. I have an amendment to the minutes, I think. Should I do that now, or should I make the motion first?
I think you make the motion and then I don't super think it matters, but just to get it on the table, and then I'll ask if there's any amendments.
Okay, it's very minor. But I move that council adopt the minutes of the Energy and Infrastructure Committee meeting held on December 15th, 2022, as presented for the corporate record.
Second.
And the amendment?
On number 13 in the minutes, it says ratepayers should brace for an extensive winter. I believe that should say expensive winter, but it could be both, so I'm not actually certain.
Managing Director Maines?
Through your worship, to Councillor Van Dyke, you're absolutely correct. I missed that. That should say expensive winter. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you.
And it may very well be an extensive winter, but we have no control over that.
Okay. Councillor Robbins?
Yeah, thank you, and through the chair, I just had a question about number 14, the residuals handling facility. There's just a mention that there was a permit that was in the process of being finalized, expected to be approved by year end. Did it get approved at year end, or is that something we'll need to follow up with at the next committee meeting?
Through your worship to Councillor Robbins, it's my understanding that it was approved. We are now waiting spring, I'll call it spring breakup, for the frost to come out of the ground, and we'll be have all our crews ready to go here hopefully in that March-April timeframe. But I know everything is on schedule, and we still anticipate completion of this project circa end of 2024. Thank you.
Councillor Dumanowski?
Through your worship, item number 5, the ADM gas well. I mean, I know brief background information indicates that it's not ours, et cetera, but we get the questions from the public. So do we have any, especially in light of the one that occurred, Kingsway and South Railway or whatever, the well that took up traffic space and movement for extended period of time. This is less intrusive, but I'm getting questions around anticipated timelines. So do we have any idea, or will we be communicated with? Presumably we will as this proceeds.
Sorry, through the chair to Councillor Dumanowski. Yeah, we are very cognizant of the impact these projects have on our commuting traffic through the city. This one, you are correct, is not in our control. It's a private contractor working on a private infrastructure in conjunction with the provincial regulator. We are aware of a request for an extension already to the traffic interruption. So that would indicate to us that the timelines will be longer than were originally communicated. As soon as we get that information, we will work through our communications group to ensure the city's made aware of it. But just knowing the nature of these particular operations, we should expect for a longer period of time than a shorter period of time. For those who aren't aware or haven't been able to see it, the well in question is right behind the traffic barrier up against the roadway. So this would be a relic that would not occur today in terms of urban planning around abandoned or suspended wells. There would be a significant setback that would allow or would have allowed for no interruption to the traffic flow. But where this well is located, Spencer was approved right up against it, and it would be they would not have enough room if we were to have left all the routes open. But we'll continue to seek information as best we can and communicate back not only to committee and council, but to the city as a whole in terms of the expectations on that work. We are aware of the contractor involved, and they are a quality and reliable contractor, and we expect they're doing their utmost to make this proceed as fast as it can while maintaining safety and ensuring that the work does not have to be redone as best as possible.
Go ahead.
Your Worship, thank you for that. The other one I wanted to bring up is item number 1, the Unit 15 hot section replacement. The background's very clear, very transparent. Highlighting the point, damage due to an unfortunate workplace incident upon delivery from GE, General Electric. So, and then, of course, for everyone's view, we're not pursuing a deductible because it's or an insurance claim because the deductible is more or less what the cost is. I guess, can we have some added clarity around, and I'm not pointing fingers, but who's liable, who's at fault, and it appears that or at least by deduction of us not making an insurance claim, that we are bearing the true cost of this. Can we get more clarity around that, please?
Through the chair to Councillor Dumanowski, absolutely. The cartage, the haulage of these particular units, it's a very robust process, and GE has been doing it for a long period of time. So there are processes in place, mechanisms in place to ascertain when and if damage occurs during transport. In this particular case, and well, not in this particular case, but pretty well in all the cases associated with these particular units, there's actually a gyroscope that's inside the transport container. And if there is an impact or a material impact onto the container itself, it's noted on the gyroscope. The reason for that expense is for exactly this purpose. What happened, when did it happen, where did it happen? As part of our initial investigation into this particular incident, that was one of the areas that we looked at very closely. Who was responsible at the time of failure? Was it GE? Was it the haulage transport company, or was it ourselves? In this particular case, the failure took place after the straps had been removed from the unit itself. So the unit was freestanding on our property, and that was the differentiation between who would be responsible for damage to that unit. In terms of our contract, or GE's contract with the transport company, once those straps were released, the unit was deemed to be in control of the owner, which was the City of Medicine Hat. So in that case, that's why we are responsible for the damage. It occurred after it had been unloaded. It was sitting on a structure. A structure was subsequently failed after the straps had been released.
Just if I could quickly, so then, aside from understanding what failures occurred in that, I mean, I would imagine there's a significant learning opportunity, and I'm not trying to sound like a teacher, but that there's opportunities. I mean, obviously this wasn't welcome. This was not anticipated, and there's a little bit of a shades of gray around the interpretive value around responsibility, and I'm not disagreeing with your evaluation of it, but the straps off versus them off the site and they've waved goodbye, to me, there's shades of gray that are not material to the argument, but certainly live in my mind. But as far as the ability to mitigate this, certainly in the future or otherwise, would there that kind of a post-mortem would occur, I would imagine, and I would assume it's not just us looking at our own liabilities or failures or shortcomings, but GE and others would, the transporter would look at this. Is that fair to say? And that's occurred, and we know what we're up against in the future?
Yeah, so through the chair to Councillor Dumanowski, absolutely. That's the intent of the investigation, is to learn and move forward from that side. When I looked at this unfortunate incident, there are accidents and there are incidents. And when I look at incidents, I look at causation. And if someone was doing something that they weren't supposed to, if they were shortcutting, if they weren't following proper procedures, that's different. In this case, this appeared to be a true accident. We had done this procedure multiple times before with similar units. We were utilizing the same substructure that had been used previously. It had not failed in those cases, so there was nothing to indicate that there was a failure that was imminent in any particular instance. In this particular case, it failed. What is positive about this, though, is that our safety protocols worked. Our workers were far away. They were not injured. They very easily could have been killed if they were within the area of failure on that unit. And also, I think most positively is the fact that our employees so quickly reported the incident that allowed us to investigate it. In this particular case, these units are so sensitive. Had they not reported that and we had put that unit into service, today's cost, replacement cost, about $28 million on that machine. If for whatever reason there had been significant damage to the rotors or any part of that machine, we put it back in service not knowing that it had been dropped and potentially damaged. We could have had a much bigger loss associated with that unit. Not only the repair costs of the unit, but the lost time involved with the repair. In some cases, 6 months, a year and a half to get a new machine similar to this. When you think of the revenue loss for the city, it would have been significant. In this particular case, I'm actually recommending that our employees receive a value award from us, recognizing that they followed our procedures, they weren't hurt, and they also reported it. We want to always encourage our employees, when something like this happens, tell us about it. Let us work through it with you, and we'll learn from it, and we'll move on. So I'm very proud of our staff. It's unfortunate it happened, but it happened, and what followed afterwards was exactly the way I believe a well-functioning unit should run.
I'm very pleased to hear that. Thank you for that.
Councillor Sharps?
Yes, just a question for Managing Director Maines. So when I read this, I understand that, good on the staff, first of all. I do appreciate that. And it sounds like they did their near-miss reporting, so that's all there. What I'm not seeing here, and I might just be not understanding it, is that there was a failure of that part. So is there a change to our SOPs with checking that then? So I'm not seeing what the reaction is, or so what's the root cause analysis? Well, there was a failure, so does the standard operating procedure of that testing of that item now get changed, or what changes there?
Absolutely, through the chair to Councillor Sharps. Yes, we made significant changes to our procedures as it pertains to this. Not only, most importantly, would be the actual structure in which these machines will subsequently be laid down upon. We were utilizing a wood structure in the past. That has been changed, and it will be a more substantial and robust structure. In addition, we have designed it's almost a barrier that will now encircle the entire holding area. So in the case of any failure, the ability of the machine to actually shift off of the platform will be restricted by that barrier. So we've already made changes to not only how we do this, the materials that we use, and also additional safety procedures in place. Also given, it will also be the reinforcement again of those safety protocols when those heavy lifts are underway, that all staff and all contractors are a material distance away from any potential failure. Given it also involves heavy lift with a large crane, those are already in place in terms of distances back in case the crane itself fails and falls to the ground. So like as in all of these cases with your city organization, when these incidents happen, we learn from them, and this is also a learning as well from this. One could ask, was it predictable? I would say no, it was not predictable from that side. One could look and say, well, should you have been using wood? The fact that it had worked for a long time would have indicated that there was significant weight-bearing capability there, but that obviously wasn't the right assumption, and that happens. But again, what's important is that we adapt and move on from that. I know $1 million, it's a lot of money from that side, but it's an expensive business, so we generate a lot of revenue from it, but with that comes a lot of expense as well. As I said, that was a 23 in today's market, probably a $28 million machine, so $1 million loss, although unfortunate, could have been a lot worse from that side. So again, I just have to reinforce that, as I said, we learn and we move on, and we're better for it, and I think more safe going forward and less likely to have an occurrence. But some of these are very difficult to predict.
All right, seeing no further speakers, we will vote on adopting the meeting minutes as amended. And that's unanimous. Moving on to item 9.2.2, Unit 15, hot section replacement.
Thank you. I move that council approve an increase to the 2021 tangible capital asset budget for the Unit 15 hot section replacement in the amount of $1,066,932.
I'll second that.
So you can see the exact wording of the motion in front of us. Does anyone have any questions or comments in addition to what has already been discussed? Oh, sorry, Councillor Robbins.
Thank you, and through the chair, I just want to make sure I understand. Managing Director means I'm looking at the briefing note, and so I'm in the last paragraph of page 25 of the, so 1, 2, 3, fifth paragraph under background in the briefing note. So
Beginning in discussion with GE Packaged Power?
right,
Yeah.
so they recommended sending it back for bearing inspection, advised against installing it. And then it was returned to them and requires an inspection before it can be installed. So I just want to understand if there's, what this amount is for. Is this amount for the cost of sending it back and getting inspected and returning it to back to Medicine Hat? That's full in this number? Or if there's damage to it, will there be an additional cost to repair the damage?
Through the chair to Councillor Robbins, this is the all-in cost. This includes the transport back to GE, their inspection, and the repairs that were required. That has come up with this number and associated taxes with it. If I can, is that sufficient?
That does,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I was hoping the answer would be.
Thank you. If I can, just for clarification, we did have a rather robust discussion in terms of whether this should be a capital item or an operational expense. Treasury likely will, Managing Director Eger may want to weed in on this, but we did have a discussion over which category this should fit in. Given that the unit had been out of service and was coming back in a refurbished state, it was deemed that it was a capital improvement to the unit itself. Had it failed while it was actually in operation, it would have been classified as an operational expense. Just in case there were those questions that could potentially come from committee on this as to why it was carried in this particular manner. But it's consistent with the way we've handled hot sections in the past. Any incident of this magnitude, we haven't one quite like this, but they've all been capitalized, which is the reason to come back to council for the additional capital request. I just want to make that clear, and it wasn't clear on the briefing note. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further speakers, we'll vote on the motion. That's unanimous. Moving on to item 9.3.1, meeting minutes of the Public Services Committee dated January 9th, 2023.
I move the council adopt the minutes of the Public Services Committee meeting held on January 9th, 2023 as presented for the corporate record.
And I second.
Councillor Dumnowski.
Your worship, maybe a statement or maybe some feedback from Managing Director Mastel, since it's his last meeting. We want to keep him engaged here today. Just looking at the outstanding items list, and obviously that indicates that these are forthcoming and there might be some preliminary conversation or work done, but I certainly will emphasize and take interest in the wildlife bylaw number 4 that's indicated there, Q2 of 2023. I know I continue and have for the last couple of years in particular been receiving lots of queries, questions, concerns, challenges about this and other related issues. I just happened to have a conversation with someone about it even this past weekend, and my commitment to them was to monitor this as we all take interest, and we'll heed whatever comes out of it. But I do know that part and parcel to that, and probably is part of the whole investigation or determination of any bylaw considerations, is working and dialoguing with Alberta Fish and Wildlife. I know, and certainly I'm careful how I say this, I've heard people say they called to the city for questions about it, and the city refers them to Fish and Wildlife. When they call Fish and Wildlife, they're referred back to the city, and we have this back and forth, no answer approach, which frustrates a lot of people, and certainly would frustrate me. So I will, in advance, ask consideration as part of this, or when it's brought back through the committee, through to council, that Alberta Fish and Wildlife be invited to sit at that podium or stand at that podium to work with this council to help socialize appropriate answers to questions that they continue to have and seemingly can't get answers to. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Councillor Dumanowski, I see that Councillor Hirsch has a comment as well, but if you would like to, after we deal with the motion to receive the minutes, if you would like to make a motion so that it does get on our outstanding items list in terms of having Fish and Wildlife come and present coincidentally with the proposal under the oil list, that's something you could do.
Sure, just through the chair, I'd be happy to do that. Whatever gets it on the books or gets it into action. I mean, obviously they're not obligated to respond or accept an invitation, but I think we all serve the people. We have questions that, and there are times where our affairs cross over, and there are shared responsibilities and duties around all these things, and I would argue this is one of them. But when I get, as I said, black and white blanket statements like I've called here and I get redirected here, and only to find that it's actually a redirection yet again. And I'm not saying that no one's trying their best. I think I know what the answer is. I think, and hence my request for them to come, because I want clarity, and I think the public deserve to have that clarity. So I will do whatever it takes to get that on the record, sure.
Thank you. Councillor Hirsch?
Just in another matter, just item number 4 on your verbal, the Fabiola film productions. I don't sit on this committee, so you kind of had me at Germany. You kind of had me at filming of a spring and a first episode. Can you maybe enhance a little bit of that understanding for me?
Through your worship to Councillor Hirsch. Yeah, this is the second a time that this filming crew has been in Medicine Hat and followed our fire service. This was an interesting opportunity that came to us, early spring, late last year, and fit within Alberta's broader desire to increase the film industry as part of the economic development aspect, which is an identified area of growth from Invest Medicine Hat as well for our community. So it hit some of those strategic markers from our perspective. It was a mature production company with a demonstrated history in other areas. They had been working in Texas at the time and were able to validate that they indeed know what they're doing, do not compromise the emergency service response capabilities that remain front and center, very professional in their approach. So we continue to work with them and advance that opportunity where they are following one of our firefighters that is native from Germany that served with British forces and got exposure to Medicine Hat, and following retirement joined our Mesnat Fire Service, a very interesting gentleman that was of interest to this filming crew to highlight German residents doing interesting work abroad. So it brings some exposure to the city of Medicine Hat, to Alberta and Canada as a whole in the European market. This group is doing this production for Discovery, who will air it in Europe. So it will be in German. So we will have an opportunity to receive a copy of the final product. We will find ways to make it available here, and my colleague to my left is going to help with the interpretation for me. So looking forward to it. It's been a really neat opportunity for us. I think it's been well received at the fire service, and I think will be good for the city of Medicine Hat as a whole. I think highlights some great pride that we should have in our fire and emergency services and what's happening in our community of Medicine Hat for the broader world. So it's expected to be produced and available in the spring is our understanding through Discovery.
Councillor Sharps?
Thank you. I did have a question, and I think it's internal to this, just to this table, not for administration, but I'm looking at the number 3, the outstanding items, and we're talking about the overview of the status and timeline for the items with Parks and Rec Master Plan and the overview of the timeline and milestones for facilities of the future. We can chalk this up to me being just super tired and not cognitive, but I recall accepting that for information, but that Director Will was going to come back and talk about the facilities and the alignment with us as council. So when they're talking about this on the outstanding, is that saying that Director Will's coming back, or it's just coming back to us through committee?
I believe that is intended to add those items to the outstanding items list, that the request was made to add those items to the outstanding list for items list for public services. Councillor Robbins, maybe you can confirm.
Sure, I think the intention by adding this to the list was that we would track it. And of course, any presentation is going to require all of council's contribution and discussion of it. So I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think Managing Director Mastel is as well, that it would be helpful to have a presentation at council about all of those things as we work through them, but they'll hit the committee first.
Okay, yeah, as I read this saying the overview of timelines and milestones, for the facilities of the future. Normally the presentation comes to us. I would hate to see committee do a lot of work if we're not in consensus, because there's so much talk about facilities, and I think this has been it was one of the election platforms. It's still one of the hot topics. I would really like to get this visible in front of, and it wasn't open, so I would like to get it back here.
Yeah, so I believe that I actually requested that item be added, and it is so that we can track the progress of that item, because I do recall that we did expect a report back, and just to make sure that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Okay, seeing no further speakers, we will vote on the adoption of the meeting minutes of January 9th, 2023 Public Services Committee. That's unanimous.
Your Worship, so a little bit unconventional here, for me anyway. So I would like to request that as, I don't want to interfere with how this is going to be developed or overseen by staff, but certainly as part of that, I would imagine there will be communication with Alberta Fish and Wildlife, and as a consequence of that, I would ask that they be invited at the appropriate time, either at the time that this is brought forward to council or soon thereafter, that Alberta Fish and Wildlife be invited to appear in council chambers to help answer questions related to this from their standpoint and the community's questions that are outstanding through elected officials. You can abbreviate that as you wish.
Looks like it's coming up on the screen. Go ahead.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so it's a motion is for that council directs administration to invite Fish and Wildlife to appear in council chambers to ask questions in relation to item 4 on the outstanding items list. Wildlife bracket ungulate bracket bylaw. Thank you, Rondi. Okay, so we have had a seconder. Is there any discussion around this? Seeing none, Councilor McGrogan?
The only point I'm wondering about this is we're pretty much being pretty prescriptive about where they come and how it looks, and I'm wondering if it should be just a little more open in order to entice them to attend and speak to us. I don't think it really matters what forum it's in. It's just a matter of getting them here and, you know, having that dialogue with them. So I don't know, is it necessary that they appear in chambers, and kind of a public thing, and would they be more willing to attend and just, I guess, give some outline of their procedure? I just wanted to throw that out there for discussion. I don't know if if we're basically telling them to come to council chambers and answer to us. And I just wonder if that's a little prescriptive.
We're inviting them to come.
Your worship, that was the word I was going to emphasize, invitation. I hear your point, Councilor McGrogan, and I'm guarded around that. I mean, we've all been receiving those questions. I have for some time, and I had meant to do this for some time. And it maybe starts or finishes with the wildlife bylaw, but there are questions around wildlife and maintenance and who to refer to and who to go to when they have questions that relate to concerns or challenges they're facing. And as I said, there's no satisfactory response from either side. And so it really would be an exploration. And if anything, I'll be schooled as to, and we all will, who has jurisdiction for what. And I think that's an opportunity, and so it is an invitation.
I can't see the speakers list, but it doesn't look like there are any further speakers, so we'll vote on the motion. And that passes unanimously. Moving on to before I move on, Councillor Robbins, did you have any highlights that you wanted to share from Public Services?
I did, Mayor Clark. Thank you for asking. I thought it was going to pass me by, and it was okay. So one of the items on our list that we all really enjoyed was the Together Again story collection. There's a short 5-minute video that had the voices of people within the community. And as we were doing the Together Again festival, there was a young woman who was working collecting people's stories. And so you'll hear voices that you might recognize, and everyone sort of describing the different themes of COVID and recovery. And it was really, the video was really lovely. And I took the chance this week, if you go on the Esplanade website, you can listen to all of the audios. Again, they're sort of thematically set out, and it's really interesting. I almost found it like healing in a way. I mean, that's actually the word I'm going to use, is healing, to listen and know that other people were thinking and feeling the same that I was during that time. My children did participate, so hearing their little voices is going to be something very memorable as they get older. When they think back at this time, children aren't going to remember it the same way that we do, and being able to hear it and have that real living history of something that is, you know, crisis of our lifetime for most of us up until this point. Hopefully that is the crisis of my lifetime, fingers crossed, and all good things happening. So if you haven't had the opportunity to check it out on the Esplanade website, please do. It's all of the stories are told beautifully, and there's a lot of really wonderful people, citizens of Medicine Hat, who contributed their thoughts and their time to that project. So please do check it out.
Thank you, Councillor Robbins. We'll move on now to item 10.1. And this is bylaws for second and third reading. And we have bylaw 4719, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend the borrowing debenture bylaw number 3914.
Your worship, I move that council give second reading to bylaw 4719, a bylaw of the City of Medicine Hat to amend the borrowing debenture bylaw 3914.
I'll second.
All right, any questions, comments, debate? Seeing none, we'll vote on second reading. And that passes unanimously.
Your worship, I'd ask that council move third reading and final reading of bylaw 4719.
I'll second.
Any questions or debate? Seeing none, we will vote on third reading. And that passes unanimously. We don't have any new business, but we do have a notice of motion under section 12.1. This is a motion that I put forward. I'm wondering if there's an appetite to deal with it at this meeting. Of course, with a notice of motion, it's just giving notice that this motion, that a member of council wants this motion to be made at the next meeting to give staff and council time to review it, but we can, with leave of 2/3 of council, deal with it at this meeting. If there's any appetite to do that, I would entertain a motion.
Okay.
So you don't have to read it yet. We're just voting of whether we can deal with it, or you make a motion to deal with it at this meeting. Is that?
I'd like to make a motion that we deal with it at this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, now we have to vote on that, and we need 2/3 majority. All right, so we have 2/3 majority.
Through the chair, whereas bylaw 4662, being the administrative organization bylaw for the City of Medicine Hat, establishes the organizational structure of the city administrative team. And whereas section 6 of bylaw 4662 establishes that council shall determine by resolution the departments and business units in all city divisions, including Invest Medicine Hat Division. And whereas section 7 of bylaw 4662 establishes that before passing a resolution under section 6, council shall obtain and consider the recommendations of the city manager. And whereas or coordinated and fully staffed Economic Development Division is necessary to deliver on council's strategic plan, including the following. We will have a strong, diversified regional economy and economic ecosystem that encourages entrepreneurship. Administration will identify and understand our comparative advantages as a city, community, and region, and rapidly capitalize on those advantages. Administration will work with our regional partners to develop a regional economic development strategy that addresses business, retention, expansion, and attraction, tourism, workforce development, infrastructure, policy process, reform, and developing an economic ecosystem that encourages entrepreneurship. Be it resolved that council directs administration to provide recommendations to council pursuant to section 7 of the administrative organization bylaw 4662 regarding the departments and business units in the Invest Medicine Hat Division at the February 21st, 2023 City Council meeting.
I will second that.
Thank you. So I would like to speak to this. The reason that I wanted to put this forward is partly we have a new city manager coming in, and we have been in a situation where now interim city manager Pancoast has had the dual role delegated to her for the managing director of Invest Medicine Hat position. And it is critical to our community that we progress with respect to economic development in short order. I think we all hear from members of our community that this is really important to be able to work with our regional partners, collaborating on what's best for the development of our business, our current existing businesses, allowing them to flourish within our city and, of course, attract new business to the city. I don't think that we can have time to delay on this any further, and so that is why I am making this motion today. Councillor Sharps? Sorry, I did not make the motion, but that's why I wanted to discuss it today.
Thank you. Through the chair. So I voted to have this conversation. I'm not necessarily in favor of it. So I think it's important that we have the conversation because I agree with you, Mayor Clark, that we really need to move on this. We've sat on it for a year. We've been in it, 13 months now. But I do believe that a month before the new city manager starts is the worst possible timing. I would like that, I don't even want to see it at the next meeting personally. I would like to give her 30 days to get in here, get her business cards, get to know people before we throw this motion at her so she can come back with some educated decisions and, some direction. I agree 100%. We've sat on this. I take a lot of calls as a small business owner in the community with people that are frustrated with our approach to economic development. I sit on both of the committees, intermunicipal and economic PEP, and it is very frustrating as a small business owner because people call me all the time and say, I'm so frustrated, I can't get anywhere. So I want this more than anybody. But what I don't want to do is pull the rug out. We worked really hard to recruit a city manager. I think we've got a great one starting, and I really want to give her the city to manage and make sure that she's got complete and utter everything at her disposal to make those decisions and come back to us with, okay, I've had 30 days and I want to talk to, and I've talked to the managing directors and we've got a plan, but I feel like we just are making her decision and telling her that this is her priority right now when that might not be. Anyways, yeah, so that's where I'm at. So I will not support this motion.
So just for clarity, the February 6th meeting is our next meeting. The new city manager will start that day, and the request is for them to bring recommendations on the following meeting, February 21st. And it is also an option for administration to say, like, if the city manager decides that she's not ready to present the recommendations at that meeting, she is certainly able to request additional time. Councillor Hirsch?
I don't want to waste anyone's time and kind of repeating what Councillor Sharps is indicating. I just think we got the cart versus the horse kind of in play here. I agree with the idea that, and I was the first, everyone's piling on saying we should have been going on with this, but we should have, quite frankly. I've said it before, capital's very fluid. It just goes all over the place. So the fact that we weren't in the game, really, at the end of the day, I think it's helpful. Realistically, we're going to have a city manager that's going to come in, get her bearings to begin with. Of course, we're going to have her as the point of the spear when it comes to the organizational direction. So we need to allow her some time to get get acquainted. The only thing, and the reason I'm not gonna support it as well, is there's a little bit of handcuffing going on here already where some of the outcomes have already been dictated, and I'm not so sure that that might be, again, the point was made saying we want to have the ability for administration to have a broad mandate and come to us with their suggestions, but there's already stuff in here that tells me, and I'll speak to it too, to be honest, that we're talking about regional partners, et cetera. Well, what if we come into play where there's an opportunity that actually runs into a competitive offer between one of our neighbors and us? And what does that look like? So I don't want to presuppose anything. Really, I'd want to have an open slate to say, okay, this is what it's going to look like. And I don't want to presuppose anything, to be honest. I just want to have an open dialogue to indicate that anything's possible when it comes to the creation of this. And I think, to be honest, we need to do it right. And I don't want to necessarily already go down a path that's already been chosen. I think we need to have a full discussion, full on, everything on the table, and have it at a time when everyone's at the table. Thanks.
I have a follow-up question. What do you mean presupposed? What is presupposed? What are you saying is presupposed?
There's milestones or indications in here, whereas deliver on, including the following. Administration work with regional partners, develop a regional economic development strategy. I don't know.
That's in our strategic plan.
No, I understand that, but again, depending on the strategic plan, depending on the reality in play is two different things. So I just want to have the ability to have a forthright discussion with all the people that should be at the table, including the city manager.
Councilor Dumanowski?
Well, Your Worship, I absolutely couldn't agree more than having this before us today. I thank you for doing that and signaling the need for this. It's easy to sit back, and I think the timeline has already been put out there, and there are people who watch for that and know that a year's gone by, and not that we have been closed to business, but we certainly haven't had the opportunities to do the same things we ought to have. And I think that's what I see this as signaling is front and center to our city manager, who likely is watching this meeting right now, that this is an important item before this council, before this community. I'm not certain around the immediacy of having recommendations the following meeting, but in short order, we are not in a good position to sit back and ask for weeks or months of orientation before decisions are made or ideas are brought forward. This is going to be internal. This is ours. We can grow, develop, and morph this platform and the opportunities that come with it as we move forward. But one thing is for certain: doing a lot of nothing is going to result in a lot even less than we are getting right now. So I think this is a signal, a pronounced signal that this is now at the forefront of this community and this council. So I wholeheartedly endorse it.
All right, seeing no further speakers, we will vote on the motion. And that is defeated. And that is, seeing no further business, we will adjourn the meeting.